Is the Mason Rudolph era in Pittsburgh finally over? Is the signing of Russell Wilson? I mean, Mark Caboli tweeted it out shortly after the signing that the Steelers and Russell Wilson are not Russell Wilson, Mason Rudolph's representatives have met, and never say never, but it doesn't seem likely he's going to come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Has that story, is that lifespan of Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh officially ended? And I mean, is it I think the second part of this is it fair? Like, did they do it again to Mason Rudolph what they've done a billion times, or is this just circumstance and sometimes you got to sign the bigger name?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the end line for the Steelers and Mason Rudolph. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for either side, but look, you check a box with a veteran quarterback that you think could be a starter, and you did it for much cheaper than what Mason Rudolph was going to cost you. Like, I understand it. I think there is a pretty meaningful difference between Russell Wilson and Mason Rudolph. Like, Russell has a resume that just is miles better than Mason's. I get that Mason is a little younger, but not that young. Like, at a certain point, there's diminishing returns on being just a year younger when you get to a certain age. I don't think this was particularly unfair to Mason. He is a free agent. He was exploring his opportunities. If he really wanted to come back and play for the Steelers and compete for, and try to win the starting job again, he could have done that. Like, it's not like he had a lot of time to talk to the Steelers. He had a lot of time to work out a deal with them, and he wanted to, I think correctly so, explore his options elsewhere. I don't think you can fault either side for doing what they did. The Steelers weren't going to wait around for Mason Rudolph, clearly, and Rudolph wasn't going to wait around for the Steelers or take an unfriendly deal just to stay with the Steelers. So I don't think this is I don't think there's any animosity. I don't think there should be. I think everyone kind of did what was in their best interest in the moment, and I think it's going to end up working out for everyone. Like, I think Mason's going to get a better deal somewhere else, and the Steelers found the veteran quarterback that they needed on a cheaper deal, and I think everyone's going to walk away generally happy, at least in the short term, with what happened.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that Russell Wilson, or I keep calling him Russell Wilson, I keep getting them confused. Mason Rudolph,
they look a lot alike.
Hey, I gotta test the market. I gotta look at this and see what the best offer is. Like, with the mindset of nobody's going to sign in Pittsburgh for cheaper than I would sign in Pittsburgh. And then Russell Wilson comes rolling in here with, you know what? Just give me the least amount of money that you could possibly give me, and that sounds good. Let's go try and win a Super Bowl. Let's see if it works out. I don't think it's a disrespectful move. I don't think they did it again to Mason Rudolph. I think that if they signed Mason Rudolph and then they signed Russell Wilson, which I think could have happened, like if Mason signed with the Steelers and Russ still became available, I think we're still having this conversation here, and I think it's very different on the Russell or the Mason Rudolph side of things. But I think he'll sign somewhere else. I think he'll get somewhat of a deal. If we're going to be honest, I think his market has totally crashed after the Russell Wilson deal, just because there is no backup plan. I think that the Steelers were kind of pushing that forward, whereas in teams looked at it and said, we can't lose Mason to Pittsburgh. Now we might be Mason's best option. So it's the Justin Fields effect where, guys are filling in, and that's the lower in the bar. I think that he's not going to sign for as much as he would have if free agency started last week. I still think he gets a deal somewhere. I still think that he goes somewhere and competes for, at minimum, a backup job, gets a backup job, is viewed as a high-end veteran backup. But I don't think he's coming back to Pittsburgh, and I think that time has officially ended. Crazy to think that it has officially ended. Where do the Steelers go with their third quarterback now? What do they do?
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario is they draft a guy. They take a flyer on a third or fourth round guy, probably later than that, in the draft this year. Pretty deep quarterback class. You could probably find, like, there's going to be a gem in the later rounds of this year's draft.
Cough, Joe Milton.
Okay. Oh, I love it. I
love Joe Milton.
Okay, I also had someone when I was walking into the Pete for the last Pitt basketball game, last Pitt home game, that was telling me all about how they need to sign Joe Milton, or they need to draft Joe Milton. So you've got a fan. I don't hate that, but yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome.